What's good, gamers? Welcome to the Retrofix 2 Turbo YouTube channel. I'm your host, Mr. Rudy, aka Sega Wolf. And today's topic that I want to discuss was the real reason video game stores are vanishing and why we're still standing. So tune in and hope you enjoy. I've spent over a decade building the Retrofix 2 Turbo into what it is today. And I'm going to pull back the curtain on how we survived what others didn't. Now, the Retrofix 2 Turbo is kind of an interesting store. It started out as something very simple and homage for a store that I grew up with, Network Video. And Network Video, for those who know, back in the 90s was very well ahead of its time when it came to Japanese anime, import culture, gaming, when internet was still at its absolute earliest infancy for a lot of people in the mainstream who are just getting computers. We're talking like 1997, 98. And this place was just absolutely amazing. As somebody who went there as a teenager, I wanted to start a store that was very much similar in line to what they were doing. Retrofix started as that, a very small, humble store, 175 square feet, probably one of the smallest stores next to a mall kiosk in the entire West Coast, if not the country. And basically, I held it inside of a bedroom. The place has kind of snowballed into something much bigger, much more grandiose than what I had actually intended it to be. And it has been a absolutely, just thinking back in my head visually, just running through the images, I'm seeing of where it started, remembering my days on Craigslist, Facebook, things of that nature, and going to flea markets. That was where I spent a lot of my time really kind of honing it in about like what I was going to do. And the opportunity came up to have a physical store location as part of a sublet in a much larger business in a much larger building. And I took that opportunity to get started. It just so happened I did it right at the beginning of what became known as COVID, right before the pandemic lockdown. So way to go, Rudy. You chose actually correct, and I'm going to tell you why. So with 2019 being our year of when we opened up, November 2019, we were just literally months away from COVID hitting the U.S., and it was something very, nobody could have really prepared for it. If you were going through this at that time, especially as a business owner, it was very disheartening to have to work through. Somehow we managed to make it work. Again, with a small store that started with just myself and eventually built who we have now. Like Trung has been here since early on. We have Charlie here with us. We've had a number of people come and go from this place. And it has been an absolute roller coaster ride of, what makes the video game business work. Now, after we started, a number of other businesses popped up in the area. And each one of us has our own style, our own way of doing things, and our own look. And I've never been content with just doing open and close, just make the sales, go home, rinse and repeat day in, day out. I eventually started to very much get into the idea of like, could this become a brand, right? And I'm not sure how many people in the business, when starting a business like this, a small business, if you ever think about, store 2, 3, 4, and 5, if you're thinking about becoming something, national to international to global, like however you may see it. For me, it was just getting that initial start as somebody who started on Craigslist, working flea markets, conventions, to now having a fairly sizable store with quite the reputation here in the Bay Area in California, one of the most difficult places to make it financially work. We're managing to do so. The inspiration for this video came from a recent YouTube video I watched not that long ago. I actually watched it a number of times. Was sure a lot of you guys might be familiar with this. Phoenix Resale, aka Caleb. A lot of polarizing opinions about this young man and his videos on businesses. And the most recent one that I watched was the Our Video Game Store is Okay. And I had to go to the comment section immediately after maybe about a minute of watching what was transpiring, and everybody just dogpiling on Caleb, blaming him, saying, the state of retro retail, all this kind of stuff was in the sad state it was in because of the nature of what he was doing. I had to take some time to sit down and kind of like digest that entire video. And what I had noticed is a lot of people were kind of saying, it's people like him that are the problem. It's the reason, that this person is buying games from stores and bringing in mediocre trades and getting really high dollar amounts back and taking it and filming videos for quick flips and putting it online, et cetera, et cetera. And I wasn't really paying much attention to this guy until I watched a video by another YouTuber, Heckin Steve, who went on and just, you can see he sees was how much he detests Caleb and other ilk like him, resellers and stuff like that. Now, I have a little bit different take on those types of things because I've sat at both sides and kind of understood what both spectrums look like. It's not Caleb that is single-handedly taking down stores, and that is ridiculous to think that any one person could do such a thing. It's just not feasible. It's not possible. What Caleb's doing is actually putting a light to a lot of what these other stores are going through, and it's a matter of their evolution, their ability to hang on, and not even just hang on, but to adapt and grow. And from a lot of the stores that I've seen him interview, and this is kind of a small pocketed area, every single store that I saw, nothing looked different from one to the next. You couldn't tell any of these stores apart. They all look very cookie cutter, right? Not like a GameStop type of thing. It's just that some have effort and other ones just really don't. They're there to sell, make money, open, close. That it looks like the end, the start and the end of it. And that is the one thing that we are not here at the Retrofix. We're not a type of store that just opens, closes. We're doing things to build an entire community, an entire brand. If you've ever been here physically, like you've seen, even if you're not here physically, you can go online, you can look at pictures, videos, you can kind of see that our visual representation is stronger than most. And that is not me tooting my horn. I'm just stating a fact that we have put a ton of effort, a ton of money, a lot of design work, a lot of creativity into how we do things. We started as just a standard retro video game store in 2019, right? And it took on another shape to itself with adding in the anime. And it wasn't just standard anime. It became vintage, retro, hard to find stuff, out of print stuff. That's the cool things, the stuff that you can't easily get your hands on, right? And so after we added that, then we added in the gaming lounge. And the gaming lounge kind of took years to get it to where it's at. And it is finally starting to show some actual, like, really good results for what it is. And then how we take it a step further, well, we add the arcade, and not the typical arcade. Some stores might have like one or two machines sitting inside their place or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of a, it's kind of a given for some stores. If you can get an arcade, hey, get a few of them. And the last thing that we want to do is to just kind of be, just like everybody else. We have to kind of be like the peacock and spread our feathers and kind of show off a little bit. So we went on with a full-on Japanese arcade, rhythm games, to be specific, hard to find stuff that's very super interactive, because the reason why I didn't want to do an arcade is because most of that stuff can be played on consoles, right? You can emulate it, play it at home. The novelty wears off very quick. And I've seen stores with arcade machines, and it's like, they're cool. They're background. They become decoration. They don't become used. They're just there and eventually become in the way. They're taking up valuable real estate. But we want to make ours as interactive as possible. So we actually have constantly been putting in new machines every few months, just based upon what community is asking for and what our partners are able to work with us to get this type of stuff done. And it has been an absolute success. It grows week to week to week because, we put it out there. We put a lot of time and effort into advertising. A lot of time and effort goes into Instagram, TikTok, things of that nature, advertising. I went through, and again, I kind of jump all over the place when I talk about these things, because the ADHD, if you watch the previous video, I'm an ADHD person, so my mind it just jump. So I apologize, but if a lot of you guys understand this, you're not getting lost. You get it. I went through and I looked at a lot of stuff that Caleb had talked about with these stores. I looked up a lot of these stores. I went to their social media pages. I went to their Google pages. I went to their Yelp pages, and every single one, minimal effort put in. And when I hear them talk about their, extensive problems, like one was definitely understandable, having a bridge cut out to where people can't access you. I completely understand the frustration you feel when your customers can't actually access you. But location is super important when picking any type of spot to start a business. Some of us take the opportunity, like myself, to to take what you can get, and you just have to make it work. And I've always been very good at doing that, just making my situation work. The Retrofix essentially started with two sticks and a rock, and we turned it into what it is today. We make it work, right? But a lot of these other stores, what I felt like, what the people in the comments weren't quite really seeing from their side, or at least from the business owner's side, is that it comes down to effort. It comes down to what you put into it. You get back what you put in. A lot of the effort I seen was just so minimal. And you hear the complaints are loud, but the effort's minimal. Make it make sense. It doesn't match up. You get what you put into, and they weren't putting into it. So you got these stores that are selling all kinds of random things. They've given up video games because they switch over to cards because they feel it's more profitable. But you alienate an entire core base of your people who liked you to begin with, because you essentially sell out. That's what it is. You sell out to be something that you're not designed to be, unless you're trying to add that on. But then you forget about the other side. You can't ignore things, because the garden that goes unattended will eventually die. You have to water everything. You have to give everything proper love, care, and sunlight. Without it, things fade away, right? So we try to give as much attention to every single aspect in the store, and that comes to not just the merchandise. It comes to the cleanliness. It comes to the organization. It comes down to actually having a physical website, which I've seen many game stores don't do. They don't have a website. They might have a landing page and a couple things discussed, but most places you can't ever order anything. That's why places like DKoli's and Lucky Games or Lukey Games, or however it's pronounced, do as well as they do, because they took the time to build the infrastructure to actually have websites. Nothing is really stopping you other than your own desire and fortitude to actually see it through. So there's my take a little bit on that. Again, with the whole thing with Caleb coming in and offering, and I've seen it, and even if I doubt he'll ever watch this, but if you watch it, like, he knows the things that he comes in, he sets the tone by saying, hey, I brought a lot of $10, $15, $20 games, and a lot of times that's BS. It is. You're not bringing in anything that is sellable. You're bringing in a lot of stuff that tends to be very mediocre because you can't sell it, because nobody cares to look it up. Now, granted, in the store setting, that stuff might work fairly well, because the average consumer is not necessarily a hardcore gamer. There's somebody who just comes in, it's just a little bit of a pastime for them, and they look for pricing, and it's like, oh yeah. So I find a lot of times that people quote things like price charting, that, $10, $15, $20 titles, it's really about 25% to a third less, because price charting doesn't factor in condition, nor does it factor in shipping costs, and it's not able to aggregate those numbers appropriately. So you get really false information. You can see a copy, for example, like Assassin's Creed, people try to sell for $5. GameStop sells it for $2. We sell nice, clean, complete copies that have been resurfaced and disinfected and packaged up properly for $3. But then we also have our deal of, buy 3 get 1 free on a lot of our stuff. So you immediately get 25% off there if you use your math accordingly. If you use that Steiner math, you got 2/3 of the third chance. For you guys who like wrestling, with people being frustrated at Caleb, I think a lot needs to be kind of turned back onto the business owners. Like, you don't have to give out ridiculously high credit amounts for mediocre bottom tier stuff. So that really falls on you guys. If you're giving out 60-70% on a $5 game, why are you doing this? You're doing people favors. You have to look at the numbers at the end of the day. Numbers matter, okay? This is where resellers and stores are very different in the way that they do their business. Now, a reseller might say, we'll pay you 60-70% for the entire lot, right? And you mix in some garbage in there with some high-tier stuff. They balance it out. But then what happens with that garbage is they end up offloading it to stores who are going to pay less for, as they should. But for the ones who are not accepting these high dollar amounts, you're left with a lot of shovelware that you can't get rid of. You'll never see me buying sports titles. Just won't. That's the reason why our store shelves tend to be more curated with the type of items that you'll see in here. It's like, wow, I go into a store and I see a lot of inventory, but once you start to look really close, you'll see a third of the inventory is non-sellable, and that's a big problem. So once the 7th generation of gaming kicked in with PlayStation 3, 360, Wii, well, that was the sign for everybody to jump on board the money train. After 6th gen, video gaming became very mainstream, absolutely mainstream. You had rappers, celebrities, people talking about video games like never before on the news, right? And because of this happening, this taking place, the interest for people who would typically not be interested are now jumping on board and wanting to play, which means manufacturers saw an opportunity to make more money, right? So it's easy to crank out a few cheap games. Cell phones would come out, cell phone games. Remember, what was that game? Angry Birds when it first launched, right? Cheap little game made millions, if not billions of dollars. People watch and they follow and they copy. That is the nature of the beast. And so if a store pops up, they think they're doing well, and they go into trading cards and they start selling a lot of money, well, let me copy, let me do the same thing. And then again, when you start doing that, you start trading in those passions for glory, you sell yourself out, you sell yourself short, and you won't be around for long. So again, that's why Kayla's video, are video game stores okay? He is not the problem, right? Now, granted, if you were to get an army of him, then I could see it would be a problem. And a lot of resellers out there, they're scummy. What is the difference between a reseller and a physical brick and mortar store? Well, that's because we are inherently different types of people. A video game business will do it for the building of a brand, a community. A reseller does it solely for themselves. There's no benefit into anybody else except the seller themselves, and they gatekeep stuff, they hold stuff back, they take away the last piece of pie when they've already had 3 and you haven't even had 1. That's a reseller right there. So I get Heckin Steve's point about the frustrations of dealing with these guys, because they are dirtbags. They're absolute dirtbags for doing this type of stuff. But I don't disagree also at the same time with people jumping on folks like Phoenix Resale for going out doing his due diligence. And at any point in time, these people could have said no to him. And he's very respectful. He's very polite. He doesn't go in there looking to cause trouble. He asks, hey, what can you do? And it's up to them to say yes or no. And every single one of those people, at least all the ones he recorded in this video, all said yes. So he's not doing anything that he hasn't been given permission for. So I think doubling down on him is actually pretty unfair. I think a lot of the light needs to be put back onto the store owners for allowing certain types of things, for allowing the filming and promoting another person's business within your store walls. That was on them. And they still chose to go through with it because more than likely, I'm going to tell you now, they're probably all in bad financial straits. They can't make it from month to month, or that's how they're living right now. It's a struggle, and they're struggling because they haven't put in the work to get them past those things. Now, I know what that feels like because I've had to do it many times over for many years, and even at one point in time being threatened with being closed because we couldn't keep up with our rent, because we couldn't keep up with all the situations that were affecting us. And it was actually a conversation I had after I was just kind of just done with everything a little over a year and a half ago. And I was on the phone with one of my friends, and he asked me, he says, if things were to fall apart tomorrow and this all came to an end, can you go back and ask yourself, did I do everything within my power to make it work? And if I can't answer that unequivocally 100% yes, then I need to work harder, and I need to put in more, and I need to be doing more. And at that point in time, you feel very emotionally frustrated. It's like, well, how do you give more when you feel like you've already given your all? Well, you got to recenter yourself. You got to take a pragmatic look, and you got to face some harsh realities. How do you continue when you feel like you've exhausted every option? Well, one perspective cannot see everything. So you have to really kind of reach out to those around you and pull together your resources, pull together your ideas. Do not be afraid to be challenged in your way of thinking and become better. And that's what I did. And so through step by step by step, we have fought, we have became better. We became a store that does such high volume trades. We do fairly well for decent numbers, considering we have a 5-digit rent, which I'm sure some places do know about that, and some would never even fathom having to pay 5 digits in rent every single month. Not to mention a very expensive PG&E bill to run this place. But all this stuff starts to feel like small dividends and pennies once you have everything kind of set up. So that is where we put a lot of the effort in to what we're doing, because we're trying to grow a much bigger brand, a much larger goal, mind you. So I would encourage any store out there, if you happen to be a video game store who's struggling with, that we can't make things work, that we're trying our absolute best, really, really ask yourself, am I doing everything within my power to do the absolute best with the opportunity I presently have at hand, right? Not everybody has that same mindset. Some people don't have anybody to talk to about these things. And I'm part of a few different business owners groups on Facebook and Instagram, and I see the questions come. I was like, hey, I just got this great store. I really don't know how to decorate it. And I'll see a lot of stores go with a very basic black everything, and really simple or drab colors. Our store, the Retrofix 2 Turbo, is vibrant. It's colorful. It's got music. The last thing I want to look is like the Third Reich at GameStop, because the black, red, and white, they're great colors, but it gets a little bit harsh, and it's not something that is very inviting to people, especially you walk in and a lot of these people are very passionate. They came into GameStop because they wanted to do the type of work that they wanted to do. They love video gaming, but then the company just sucks the life out of them, and that's such a harsh thing to be a part of. I was once part of GameStop. Every employee here who works at Retrofix worked at either some form of game store, or they've all worked at GameStop. They've all worked in corporate, and they know it's different. We are definitely more lax about the way that we are. So what exactly makes the Retrofix so special versus all these other stores we're sitting there talking about? Well, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I think what makes the Retrofix as special as it is has to do with the people involved, the community. The Retrofix is built on the principle of buy, sell, trade, and community. Without people in the community, we have no way of, maintaining this. And my glasses are super crooked right now, and I'm trying to get them straight. I feel like, okay, got it. What makes this place special? The people. This place doesn't feel like a game store. It feels like an absolute home. It's a hub. So many days where so many regulars we see just come in and hang out, and we congregate, we talk. We don't always have to spend money. We just like being around each other. We like the people. We like the moments, the time shared, the experiences. That is what makes the Retrofix feel different. It's not cookie cutter. It's not out of a box. It is built with love and care, and that comes down to everyone who's involved. And that's my motto I have. It started by one, myself, but built by many. The many are you. You guys have made the Retrofix what it is. I only started with a vision, and my vision is basically like a canvas I started painting on. Everyone else has started with their brushes, started painting on it too. And here we are. So that's what makes the Retrofix awesome. It's all of you people who love games, who love to hang out, who love to socialize. We are your version of Cheers, without the alcohol. So thank you for that. That is awesome. I hope you guys are enjoying these long-winded YouTube talks. I think they're kind of fun. It's a great way for me to kind of decompress, discuss things, and give you guys a peek behind the curtain of what makes owning a game store, well, what it is. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's no one particular feeling to it, but it is good. It is fun, and generally we deal with people who are very happy and smiley, and just want to share that happiness with others. And so thank you for that. And I guess that's it. So gamers, I love you. Support your local businesses. They all need it, whether they do things the way that you like or don't like. If the business is doing it for the right reasons and it makes you feel good about it, then show them your support, because it's not easy to financially carry the weight of a business just to cater to other people. There's ones who do it for the right reasons, and there's ones who do it for the self-serving reasons. I like to believe that we do it for the right reasons, because it is a lot, but you guys mean a lot, and I want to keep doing this until I can't. So gamers, don't just collect. Make sure you play your games, okay? Until next time, take care.